am an expert on the police state. I've written books on it. I've made 5 films on it. And when I was cutting my teeth 29 years ago on air, Bill Clinton had just been in office for a year or so, and it was confirmed. The military was warning. It was coming out. They were leaking classified documents that now are all basically admitted and have been publicly rolled out against the public to incrementally bring in martial law. And what does martial law mean? The suspension of normal due process and military rule. And that means those that control the military rule. So it's a coup over the people, a coup over freedom. So if you look at the Great Reset and the globalist program worldwide, they'll come in and create racial or cultural division. They'll cut off resources to create rioting. They'll also cut off police funding so that crime gets out of control. So many of the small businesses and shops get attacked that most of them close. And it creates a real desperation, or what Klaus Schwab calls an angrier world. So the border's wide open, and children are being smuggled across and put in sex slavery. That's all admitted. But then when you try to fly on an airplane, or more and more try to get on a bus or a subway, the military is there searching you. And back when Clinton was in office, even before they set up the TSA in the airports, they would have the TSA, the Transportation Department, do drills that we caught on tape in Texas. People would call us, we'd drive the scene. You'd have 100 military or so with the state police on a highway, randomly diverting cars off onto the access road and searching people. And it's in one of my police state films, I think Police State 2: The Takeover. Now that's the one. We get the call, it's happening north of Austin in the Temple. My producer at the time, camera guy, gets in his car, drives up there, and they've got the military pulling over cars and buses and things, searching them. And Mike walks up and asks, it's on video, we have the video on the film, what's happening? Is there a bomb? Are you looking for terrorists? And they said, no, talk to the FBI. An FBI black car pulls up, FBI agent gets out and says, this is a drill from Fort Hood with the Transportation Department, and we're authorizing under law to do it. And then he gets back in the car and leaves. And then it turned out that document was marked restricted. It's all on video. So I've been focused on this for a long time. The reason I raised that, going back to the beginning of my research of this, is I was trying to puzzle, why are they having training events with sheriff's departments in big counties, small counties, police forces in small cities, big cities? Why is this happening in Wisconsin, in Texas, in Florida, in New York, California, every state, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Michigan? And they'd have military drills, and the military taking over the city council, or the military taking over the Capitol, and black helicopters would come in and detonate simulant explosives. You know, they weren't huge bombs, but boom, big explosions. There'd be men rappelling down, and then local media wouldn't cover it, but locals would get video. And then we would cover it. And they'd have national stories saying, Alex Jones is insane, there are no black helicopters. So we're going back 29, 28 years. When I'm first on air for a few years, it'll be 30 years in April. And so I said, what's going on? Well, then there was a 29 Palms survey with the Marines fire on American citizens to take our guns that got leaked and was confirmed to be real. So we didn't know if Bill Clinton was about to try that or not. But I thought it was very interesting. And the listeners were very interested. And so I would say a third of what I covered on air on my local TV show and my syndicated radio show that started out as a local show was this. And we even went out and we got tips and would catch the black helicopter drills where they would lease a building that was about to be destroyed in San Antonio or many other areas. And we get a tip from police that were concerned too. And they'd say, hey, Saturday night at midnight, Delta Force is coming in. They're going to do a big drill and take over this building. And we would show up and get it on video. Once in San Antonio, they send up U.S. Army with 45s. And they pull them out and point them at us and say, give us that tape. And back then, it was a tape in the camera. We gave them the tape. They erased the tape and gave it back to us and said, get out of here. This is in downtown San Antonio. So obviously, when you got U.S. Army pointing 45s at you, 9mm Berettas or whatever they were. I remember the gun. It was a 45. When you've got that going on, you start saying, what the hell's going on? So back then, I'm like, well, are they planning for martial law? They were. I mean, and of course, later, all the local newscasts, oh, we're training to fight the militia and the right-wingers, the constitutional terrorists. So they went from this being secret under Clinton, and then with Bush, yeah, it's mainly for Al-Qaeda, but it's also for domestic groups. And then you're asking, well, what's this really all about? And then you start to realize it's part of a long-term process of just getting the military, the police, the public ready for this. So here's what's happening. We're not going to have UN troops one day or Russian troops like Red Dawn, and you're in Colorado, and all of a sudden parachutes come down and you've got Russian troops shooting at you. It'll be our own troops, but they'll be made up of people that have been tested for decades, going through the training, going along with attacking their own people. There'll be a lot of foreigners and illegals that make up the military, which is now happening publicly. I'll show you a bunch of articles in a moment, in case you've been hiding under a rock. The police more and more are being made up of illegal aliens. I remember 10 years ago, New Mexico legalized hiring illegal aliens as police. No one believed it when I was reading AP articles about it. There's no way they're hiring illegals. Now it's all over the news. You're like, okay, yeah, it's happening. So the UN troops come in our own uniform, but they're trained by NGOs. They're trained by UN doctrine. It's a State Department Memorandum 7277. And remember, everything I say, you can write notes and search it. So I'm moving quick here. Everything I've said in the last 5 minutes, you just search. Anything I said, you'll pull it up. I didn't tell the crew what to pull up. I dealt the force doing drills of taking over U.S. cities. They were just searching it. They pulled up local newscasts around the country. Okay? You can do this too. Everything I say, State Department Memorandum 7277. Anything I say, write it down, decide what you want to investigate, because the rabbit hole goes on forever. So there's this massive, right beneath the surface program, and we get the training manuals because the police leak them to us, and the government confirms it. Remember, we broke the MIAC report, now like 14 years ago. And the FBI with the military was training to confiscate guns, and the libertarians, the main enemy, and Alex Jones and Ron Paul, and well, there were big state investigations about it. But see, that was all secret then. Now it's out in the open. Joe Biden's like, yeah, MAGA are terrorists, and our official number one threat's white supremacists. And we define white supremacists as anybody that disagrees with martial law, basically. So your borders are wide open, but you yourself are treated like a total slave and have no due process. And so anytime I criticize the TSA, people say, well, you know, the TSA was set up for 9/11. No, it wasn't. They already had it ready. They used 9/11 as the pretext. And I always told you, this was in the documents, they were going to expand the TSA to highways, buses, terminals, trains, not the border. And then we saw countless examples under Obama. Even in Austin, we didn't have to go anywhere. We got a call, hey, TSA's down here at the train station searching everybody. We go down there and they say, get back, and they're searching everyone. So this was all training and normalization of this, the angrier world. So they defund your local police. They bring in, it's not 10 million, 20 plus million illegal aliens, mainly military-age men. Then we learn they're training all the preachers that will sign on for the clergy response teams, that when martial law comes, they will tell you it's of God, turn your guns in, and they'll also be talking to their parishioners and reporting it back to the military. And that gets into Jade Helm, which was a total martial law takeover drill. We weren't saying Jade Helm 7-8 years ago. was a takeover. We said it was a drill for a takeover. So they get rid of our police and military. They transfer it over to multinational forces, but they first munialize by mixing the foreigners into the police and military to normalize it. So we've got decades of preparation, decades of training, and them keeping it secret. Then they begin to admit what they're doing. Then they become to go operational. Then they defund police. Then they give billions of dollars, the government has, to Black Lives Matter, not just NGOs. And they start burning everything down. And so they're getting ready for the big event where they're going to trigger a globalist insurrection in America that they're going to call a patriot insurrection. So they'll have provocateurs on the right-wing populist side, and they'll have all their big NGOs and Hezbollah and Hamas and Black Lives Matter and Antifa on the other side, and a lot of them posing as us to start burning buildings, killing people, sabotaging things, to create so much hysteria and fear. Then the military has to come out. But they're planning currently, doesn't mean they'll pull the trigger, but it's being pre-programmed right now, that if Trump wins in 8.5 months, they will then activate the leftist groups to burn down the country. But to legitimize that that's okay, they'll have some right-wing supposed terrorists stage some events, truck bombs, mass shootings. Think about it. It's all on the drawing board, but now it's going operational. That will then be used to call it a giant clash of civilizations or a civil war, and then Trump, who is president-elect, will be blamed for it. And they plan to have so much destabilization and hysteria after Trump is elected, but in the 2 months before he gets into office, on January 20th, 2025, that then in that fog of war, they're able to assassinate him or arrest him. The point is, they know we're awake, they know we're winning, they're about to make their move. So they were building this option for martial law the whole time and preparing and normalizing it where you see troops on the street, you see gun confiscation, and you see the clergy response teams during Katrina helping take the guns, and old man doesn't turn his guns in, so they kill him, and an old woman won't turn in her revolver, so they beat her up on camera. That's in all my films. Police State 1, Police State 2, Police State 3, Police State 4. Pretty important films. In fact, next week on X, we'll re-upload all the Police State films to X, because this was the globalists building in their fail-safe the whole time. So now that leads us to where we are today. Defund the police, cut back their numbers, have DAs that won't prosecute people that rape, that rob. They even release shooters that shoot people if they're not white. If you are white and you're under attack and you defend yourself, they throw the book at you, because they're creating the battle line, because whites are now the minority. They want to make it a racial clash when really it's BlackRock and the globalists and all the big money coming in.